It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank, and I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
Thought like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When two of boxing's most talked about names, Jake Paul and pound-for-pound star Gervonta Tank Davis, finally square off, legends of the sport are already weighing in. Tank brings knockout power, quick speed, and proven experience against top-level opponents, while Paul enters with huge fan attention and a history of big-stage fights. Many believe Davis will control the fight with his precision and footwork, but some argue that Paul's size, reach, and ability to surprise could turn it into the year's biggest upset.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, oh, I just beat the best man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like
the fight's location has officially shifted. Instead of Atlanta, Jake Paul will now face Gervonta Tank Davis on November 14th at the Casa Center in Miami. MVP announced on social media saying the war is no longer in Atlanta, but the matchup is still on the same date with a new city. The bout will stream worldwide on Netflix, and while many see it as a spectacle, officials have confirmed it is only an exhibition. A major talking point is the size gap between the two. Paul came in at about 199.4 pounds in his last fight at cruiserweight, while Davis has recently fought near 135 pounds. Because of that difference, Davis's WBA lightweight title will not be on the line.
Fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks...
Even though the full terms of the fight are still unclear, there has been no official confirmation of the contract weight number of rounds or whether it will follow standard professional rules. Many see the matchup more as a crossover event or entertainment show than a true title fight, which has sparked debate about fairness, safety, and respect for boxing's weight class system.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. Well, no, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Crawford has voiced doubt about the upcoming Paul versus Davis matchup mainly because of the size gap between them. He sees it more as a spectacle than a true contest, comparing it to a sparring session presented as a real fight. While he respects Davis as a skilled, explosive boxer with top-level credentials, he admits that Paul's bigger frame could become a factor. If Paul lands cleanly, Crawford believes the fight could change in an instant. Still, he remains unconvinced that the bout will be held under normal professional standards, stressing that the weight difference makes it hard to view the two as equals.
Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank. So
Shakur Stevenson, who remains undefeated and highly respected, sees the Paul versus Davis fight as an uneven matchup mainly because Paul is much bigger. Still, he believes Davis's experience, skill, and ring IQ would let him control the bout with ease. Stevenson expects Davis to use movement accuracy and fundamentals rather than trying to overpower Paul. He doubts Paul has the polish to deal with Davis's speed and intelligence and feels a decision win is more likely than a knockout. While he criticized the fight as a spectacle and a poor reflection on boxing if Davis goes through with it, Stevenson is certain that in terms of pure boxing ability, Davis is far ahead of Paul.
When you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and say he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at.
What do you think about the rumors that Tank and Jake fighting?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that, and he called cap on it. So if you gonna call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So
Daniel Cormier offered a balanced take on the Paul versus Davis matchup. He credited Jake Paul for stepping up against a fighter of Davis's level, acknowledging both the risk and the potential reward. At the same time, he criticized the clear size difference, which makes it hard to see the fight as fair by normal boxing standards. Cormier pointed out that Davis holds the edge in skill, experience, and pedigree, meaning Paul is taking a major gamble. He also considered what a loss would mean for each fighter, noting that Paul's credibility could take a hit while Davis would face reputational damage if he lost to a much bigger opponent. Though he stopped short of a bold prediction, Cormier leaned toward Davis because of his superior boxing ability, while admitting Paul's size could keep the fight unpredictable.
Swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt. I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting the real boxer? That's the real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez views the Paul versus Davis fight more as a spectacle than a battle for titles or legacy. He explained that the matchup is about money and mainstream attention rather than rankings or prestige. Lopez said there is nothing wrong with that since both fighters will earn big paydays and the event will attract wide interest. While it may not carry the weight of a championship fight, he believes it still has value by pulling in new fans and expanding boxing's reach. For him, even an exhibition can help the sport when it combines personalities, drama, and showmanship to create buzz.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show. A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah. And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so.
Promoter Eddie Hearn shared a similar view but pushed it further by stressing that boxing and entertainment should remain separate and a fight between Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul crosses that line. He argued the matchup is not truly competitive but rather a business move built on fame and social media buzz. Hearn highlighted the big size difference as proof that the fight is not about testing skills on equal terms but about creating a spectacle for mainstream attention. He admitted the event would be huge financially, drawing global interest and major revenue. Still, as someone who values real competition, he finds it concerning when fights are arranged mainly for profit instead of sporting merit. Yet from a promoter's angle, he recognized it would still be a win, guaranteeing headlines, ticket sales, and pay-per-view buys even if boxing purists feel the sports standards are being compromised.
Told us that it was, we were looking at that fight for February of next year, and they always said that there was a chance that Jake would fight in November. I think, wasn't I the one that broke Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis 6 months ago or something? I knew that they'd agree that deal. I didn't know they were about to announce it then. But I did know that they'd agreed that deal previously. So I don't like it, if I'm honest. I mean, I think we need to really differentiate between boxing and an entertainment concept. And that's what that is. It's a freak show, it's entertainment, it's a lightweight fighting a cruiserweight. With, I don't know, is it bigger gloves and certain minutes per round? I don't know what it is, but I understand the market and I understand this freak show shock kind of the world mentality of people potentially tuning in. Is that a step too far? Maybe. I mean, I hated Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, but it did massive numbers. I hate Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. It'll probably do massive numbers. So that's when you really have to differentiate yourself between, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it isn't going to do good business. Now, whether you want to be involved with it is another kettle of fish. I don't want to be involved with it, but I do respect the fact that it's going to do big numbers. It's just not boxing. And I don't think we should promote it as boxing.
In the meantime, then, Eddie, where does that leave you with Anthony Joshua? Are you exploring other options for the end of this year, or are you still looking at that fight for the beginning?
Yeah, no, we're not interested in the Jake Paul fight right now. After that, I mean, like, you know, we're not going to wait around till November, is it?
Raleigh Romero gave a balanced view on the Paul versus Davis fight, emphasizing that Tank's place in boxing is already secure. As a multi-division champion with big wins and major titles, Davis has earned respect that won't be diminished even if he loses to Jake Paul. Raleigh admitted that Paul's size is a genuine factor and provides him with a real physical edge, but said that doesn't erase what Davis has accomplished. The legacy, the championships, and the respect from the boxing world will stay with Tank no matter the result.
Jake Paul might be too big for him, or Tank might crack him. You don't know. Like I said, or as an exhibition, we don't know if they throw at each other or not, or we don't know. I don't know. I can't give an opinion because I don't know what's going on.
Do you think it impacts, will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were, to beat him or even, knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, a 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him.
Paulie Malignaggi stressed the difference between size and experience in the Paul versus Davis matchup. He acknowledged Jake Paul's growth in popularity and physical presence, but argued that boxing experience matters far more than raw strength. Malignaggi pointed out that Gervonta Davis has performed on the biggest stages, headlined major events, and taken on elite opponents. In his view, no matter how big Paul is, he cannot equal the years of training, ring IQ, and adaptability that Tank possesses. For Malignaggi, skill and experience are usually what decide fights over size alone.
Lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. Davis, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you. You can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch at lightweight, can drop a heavyweight. There's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah, but if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion, multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and Chris Algieri, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience, so we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you. You're probably going down if you're a small guy if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still hasn't earned?
What's your take on Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis? Do you think Tank's skill and experience will control the fight, or will Jake's size and power make the difference? Share your prediction in the comments below.